An invading army of alien crabs is clawing its way out of tunnels trying to destroy you. Will they pincer you to death or will you save the day? It's Tunnel Terror, an original Chromeworks Scratch game coming at you right now. Hey, and welcome back to the Chromeworks studio in beautiful Ottawa, Canada. I'm Andrew Tomek, your technology teacher, back with another great Scratch lesson. So today's lesson is an original game that I just wrote today. I was a little hard up. I was working on another project and it fell through. So I started thinking about my favorite arcade games, and I was inspired by a 1981 Atari title called Tempest. And the way that game works is it's a circular game where you're actually shooting towards the middle of the screen as creatures come down a long tunnel at you and try to kill you. It's actually quite a bit of fun, very, very fast moving. Now, today's game isn't going to be a remake of Tempest, but I've stolen the circular shooting motif from the Tempest game. So we're going to create a game where we actually spin around a central point and shoot towards the middle as enemies try to come out at you towards the edge and try to touch you, basically. So, with that in mind, let's get started. So here's the starter file, which I've supplied for you. The URL to find that is in the description for this file here. And as always, you can also find it at chromeworks.ca/projects, where I keep all my old projects. So let's have a look at what we have here. I've got sort of a spinning wheel that I've designed here. So our enemies are going to spawn right here in the middle, and they're going to move their way out towards the edge, getting bigger and as they move towards the edge, basically. Here's our paddle. You can see it's not a straight paddle. I actually drew a big circle, like 16-point circle, and just erased all the parts of it that weren't this paddle shape here. It's not at the front, so let's click on it and see if we can bring it to the front here. There we go. So this is what the game's going to look like. So as you move your mouse, this is going to follow your mouse cursor around and spin around the circle, basically. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit. All right, so let's just get started. We'll dive right into the coding here. There's I just wanted to show you also the enemies I have here. I've made a crab enemy. Now this is just the stock crab that's been taken out of the Scratch library here, but I've made a few little changes to it to give it kind of googly eyes. The original guy only animates his claws when we move him around. This guy animates his eyes and claws and the little back leg thingies as well. And I thought that would be a little more interesting to watch. I didn't really want crabs. I was thinking more like crab-like aliens here that were going to be attacking us. And the rest, there's a little laser dot here that I have for our projectile, but you can draw whatever you like, of course. And I furnished you with a thumbnail as well, Terror Tunnel, that you can use or not use if you like. And there should be a game over screen. I'll get that restored again soon. Okay, so let's get started with the coding. So you can see that I have my wheel graphic here, but I've also got this other graphic called frame. These could have been put into the same graphic without any trouble at all, but what I wanted was we're going to set up kind of a flashing effect here where these lines are kind of getting darker and lighter and doing some funky graphic effects. I didn't want the edge to look like that, though. I wanted it to remain solid. So that's why I separated them into two different parts. And we can code those up really, really quickly just to get our background going here. So let's start with a green flag. When green flag clicked, let's set our ghost effect here. We want this to be kind of transparent, the wheel part. So we're going to go to our looks. We're going to set the ghost effect to 50. And let me show you what that looks like. And so it's a little bit darker than the edge of this thing here. And then we're going to start making it kind of flash randomly by changing the brightness setting. So we're using the graphics setting called brightness here to modify the brightness of it, and it'll kind of pulse and go lighter, darker, lighter, darker. So we're going to go repeat 25 in here. And inside that, we're going to change the brightness effect, which you can find under looks here. We'll go change brightness, and we're going to change it by -2, so it's going to get darker than this. Let's repeat. So I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to repeat 25 again, and we're just going to go back up to our default, back up to 2. And that's all there is to it. So let me show you what that looks like. So now it's kind of pulsing in a really cool way. I just like the look of that. I was trying to find a way to funkify, as I say. I like to add little touches like this just to make my games look a little more fun. We are totally done with this background graphic. Oh, actually, a couple more things. Let's go to back. So I just want this. This is going to be our background, basically. So we're going to send it right to the back here. I'm not actually making it a background file here. The background is just going to be plain black. And because I wanted to animate this, of course, you can't do quite the same effects and motion and stuff like that. So I wanted to reserve the right to animate this if I wanted to, and that's why I put it into a sprite. Let's move it to the back, though, so it will act like a background. And another problem is when you're playing the game, if you're playing it full screen like this, it'll be fine. You won't be able to drag anything around. But while you're testing it, or if you're playing it in the editor, this is an annoying thing that always happens because we're using a mouse click for this. You're accidentally going to drag on the screen from time to time and move all this stuff out of the way. And that's really annoying. So just to avoid that, we're going to move this back to coordinate 0, 0 inside a forever loop here. And what that will do is just protect us so that in case we accidentally move it, it'll just keep popping back to its default position again. We're going to do that for the frame as well, for the other edge. So let's go over to the frame and we'll go grab a green flag. And another forever. And inside there, we'll tell it to go to 0, 0. I'm also going to bring it kind of to the front. I've got a couple of things that have to go to the front of this. So we're going to say go to front. And then we're going to move it backwards 2 layers. So move backward 2 layers. And that will let 2 other things go in front of this frame so that it doesn't, well, for example, here you can see how it's covering up our paddle. And hopefully once we start running this program, you can see that the paddle is now moved to the front. Perfect. Speaking of the paddle, let's go ahead and code that next. It's actually not that complicated at all. So we wanted to spin in a circle. You could do that with a whole bunch of math here, right? By telling it to, by plugging a math formula into here and telling it to spin around. I've never been a big fan of that, and I know a lot of the kids who watch this aren't that excited with math formulas, especially stuff that you're not going to learn until grade 9 or 10 or so. So I'm going to show you a cheaty way to make things spin inside the Scratch editor. So if we have a look at the costume here, you can see the center of the costume is right here, and I've actually dragged this out way to the edge of the screen here. So now all we have to do is actually change the rotation of this. Let me grab a turn here, and you can see that as I rotate this around, it'll just spin perfectly around the circle. As long as I've aligned it properly, it should perfectly spin around the circle. So coding this to move now is quite a simple process. Let's go ahead and do that right now. We'll go when green flag clicked, forever again. We'll go have it go to the middle. So despite the fact it's at the edge of the screen, Scratch thinks it's in the middle. So when we send it to 0, 0, the sprite will center on this and actually line this up here so that no matter what happens, and let me demo that for you. So even if I move this out of the way, it'll always pop right back to that spot again. So this is where it lives, and it'll just go anywhere around that circle. All right, let's do some layering here as well. We want this to be in the front more or less. Well, we want it to be backward 1 layer. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll go to our looks commands here. We'll go to front and then go backward 1 layer. The only thing in front of this is going to be our splash screen that we're going to deal with later, and I'll show you how that works in a little bit. All right. We have a game over event here that's going to be happening a little later. I just want to finish the sprite up so that we don't have to look at it anymore. Actually, let's just test this sprite first. So let's, oh, and I'm actually missing one block that I need to bring this to life. So this isn't actually moving now. All we're going to do now is tell the thing to point towards the mouse pointer. So wherever my mouse is, it's going to spin around to face it, basically. So let's go to our motion blocks, point towards mouse pointer. And just like that, we have this beautiful spiraling circle interface, very fast, way faster than most keyboard commands. And you're going to need it once all these bad guys come, because they're going to come faster and faster and faster until you get overwhelmed. So that's something to look forward to. As I was saying, we'll do a little housekeeping here. Let's go when I receive message, new message, and we'll call it game over. There we go. And we're just going to do some stops here just to make sure the program's properly stopped. So let's go to our stop all. I'm going to change this to stop this script and then also stop other scripts in this sprite. I have to put it like that. So there we go, and that will just mean that our panel will stop when the game's over. We won't be able to move it around anymore. We're going to do this in a couple of different spots just to make sure the game ends. We don't want the game to actually be over and do a stop all here because we want time for our game over screen to appear. But we don't want to be scoring points in the background, and that's why we stop things. Okay, so far so good. Let's go program our enemies now. We'll go over to our crab. Mr. Krabby. Let's grab a green flag. And we'll tell it as soon as we start the game, we want the crabs to hide. This is going to be the master crab, and we're going to be making clones of him as we go. Let's tell him to go to 0, 0. And we don't want it to appear right away because our splash screen is going to be fading away. So let's just tell him to wait 1 second before the action begins. And now we'll need a forever. And in this forever loop, we're going to be making clones of ourselves. So this invisible crab is going to be making clones of himself. And those clones are going to be visible, of course, and start to move up the screen. They're going to start in the middle and just move up towards the edge of the screen here. Let's wait. So in between our clone making, we're going to wait, but it's going to be a variable. I've already created a variable here called wait. And we're going to wait that number of seconds. And the idea is that the wait time between new clones being made is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as time goes on. We have to, oh, you know what? I misread that. We weren't actually waiting 1 second here, though I think we should wait 1 second. What I misread on the screen here was we need to set wait to 1, not wait 1 second, but that's fine. Let's leave the wait 1 second here. I think that will work quite nicely for our purposes. All right, so we're going to wait that number of seconds, and then every time we come around this loop, we're going to change that wait value to make it drop. Now, we don't want it going down too fast, so we're actually just going to change it by 0.01. And you're going to see that it's going to go down fairly quickly. Let me show the variable for you. And so if I start my game now, you can see it's at 1, 0. Whoa, actually, that's a little bit fast. I think I misread that number. We actually want 0.01. There we go. We don't want it. We don't want to be overwhelmed within the first 10 seconds of the game. So here we are at 1, and you can see that we're kind of slowly counting down from 100. And every time we come around here, it's just going to get a little bit faster before the next guy comes and appears on our screen here as the game continues. Okay, we don't need to look at that variable anymore, so I'll hide it. And we don't want the wait to get to the point where there's absolutely no chance of winning. So here's where we kind of have to set the we want to set a speed for spawning that is fast enough that you will eventually be overwhelmed, but not so fast that it's impossible. You might want to play around with this number. I did some quick play testing on the game, and the number I came up with was 0.1 seconds, which means 10 new guys a second. So, and actually, we need this change inside of that if statement here. So here's how we're going to limit the wait time change. We're going to say if our weight is greater than our minimum number, then we're going to keep going down. But once we hit that minimum number, this will get deactivated, and then we won't be able to modify it anymore. So let's go if our weight variable is greater than our floor number, which I'm putting at 0.1. As I said, again, if you find this number too low, if you find that the game's just too impossible at 0.1, then you can change this to a higher number. Whatever this is, that's the fastest spawning rate that we're going to have. In this case, it's 10 per second. That's probably a little bit fast, but I'll let you guys decide for yourselves what you want to do with it. All right, so we're creating clones. What do we do with these clones? Well, we're going to do a bunch of stuff. Let's go ahead and control when I start as a clone. And the first thing, of course, we want to do here is show these guys. Let's make them visible. Now, they're going to start off very small and very dim in the background. They're going to get brighter and bigger as they move forward on the screen. So let's start by changing their size. Let's set their size. Oh, that's the wrong block. Set size to just 5% of their regular size. They're only going to grow up to 50%. Actually, I don't think we're going to set a ceiling on it. We're just, by the time they get to the edge, they're going to be around half their size, maybe a little bit bigger than that. Okay, set size to 5%. We want these guys pointing in a random direction, so we're just going to have them spin around a circle here. One thing, if you're starting this game literally from scratch, you should know that the original crab graphic is facing upward, which is no good with our movement routine. If you want anything to listen to movement commands, like if you want them facing right when this arrow is to the right, your character has to start from the rightward position. If I spin it around to the up position here and then tell it to move right, everything's going to be a little wacky. So we definitely need to take this character, and what I did was I just grabbed it and I spun it around, holding down the shift key so that it only go in 45-degree increments, and made it face to the right. And that is the proper facing for any kind of character. The reason they set it up that way is because in most kind of games, you'll just want your crab moving left and right like this, like he's doing a little dance or something, flapping his arms around. But in this case, we want him crawling around the screen, and we want to change his direction. So we're going to have to face him to the right as its default position. Okay, so we're setting. So now we wanted to point in a random direction. Let's go grab a point in direction command. Point in direction 90. And we're going to fill that up with a random number. All you math whizzes will know that there are 360 degrees in a circle, so we can tell this random number to go from 1 to 360, and that will give us an option of every single degree around the circle, so that our spawning will be completely random. All right, so let's get these guys moving now. We'll just go forever, and we're going to get these guys to move. So they're already pointing outwards, and all we have to do is tell them to start moving, and they will automatically move towards the edge of the screen in whatever direction they're facing. So let's get them to move with 0.5 steps. And we're going to get them to get just a little bit bigger every time they go through here. So we're going to change their size by 0.25. So they're just very slowly going to grow by just 0.25% every time around. But as you guys know, these spins around the forever loop happen quite quickly, and we're not putting a pause here. So that's going to grow in size quite quickly. If I hit the green flag now, absolutely nothing's going to happen other than these guys are going to start spawning. Let me show you that. Oh, they are moving too. Sorry, I thought they were going to be visible. So here they go. They're getting bigger and moving towards the edge of the screen. I thought we weren't quite at that point yet. But you can see they're actually moving towards the edge of the screen quite nicely. That's quite quick as well. I don't think they're going to be moving that fast. What's going on with my code here? Let's have a look at our wait time. Okay, wait time of 1 second. Oh, I guess that is as fast as they're going to go. Okay. Well, that's great. I was playtesting this, and it wasn't too difficult at first, so let's see how this goes. We can always tweak it later if we'd like to. All right, so our characters are moving quite nicely now. Let's go. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to make them start off dark and then get brighter as they go down the screen here. So let's go to our control blocks. We'll go when I start as a clone. We're going to set a variable. So the variable is called crab value. And what I wanted, there's a couple of things I'm doing here actually, sorry. So we're going to change the brightness in here, but we're also going to change the score. This is just a loop that we're going to be going through 50 times during the course of this guy's life. And I thought since this matched up pretty nicely with what I wanted to do with the score, that I would put that function into here too. So this is actually a two-part script here that controls the brightness of our characters and controls the score. I'll walk you guys through it, but there's a local variable here. So I went make a variable and clicked for this sprite only when I made that crab value. And the way that works then is that every single clone will have its own value, which is the number of points you're going to score when you get it. The default crab value, the number of points you're going to get for killing a clone, is going to be 100. But as soon as the game starts, let's go repeat 50. As soon as the game starts, that number is going to go down by 2. So let's go change crab value. We'll go to our variables, change crab value by -2. So the longer you wait before you kill these guys, the less points you're going to earn off of this game. All right, I'm going to hide that weight value again. Now, as I said, we're doing two things in here. So we're also changing the brightness value of our characters. Let's go to our looks blocks here, and we'll go set. Now, there's nothing here that says set brightness. We're going to grab the one that says set color, and we're going to do that before our loop. We're going to go set brightness. The initial brightness is going to be -50. I tried playing around with opacity, making these guys ghostly, but the problem is they looked transparent. You can see these lines through them. I just want them to be dark. I don't want them to be kind of semi-invisible like that. So in here, we're going to change that brightness effect. Let's go change brightness by 1. And so over the course of this 50 times around the loop, they're going to go from 50 brightness all the way up to 100 brightness, which is the default brightness, basically. Let's have a look again, and you can see that they start off kind of dark, and then they get brighter, kind of looking like they're emerging from a tunnel here is the idea. Good. All right, that's going nicely. This is actually not a super complex game. I thought when I started coding this that I'd get into some difficult math and stuff, but it turned out that almost everything here is pretty straightforward. Okay, so we are going to put a delay in here. Let's go ahead and add a wait 0.1 seconds. So that's going to slow down that process a little bit. They are going to get brighter, but a little bit slower, and they're not going to reach their maximum brightness until they get pretty close to the edge of the screen here. Okay, liking the look of that. Okay, now there's a couple of other, when I started the clones, and each one of them kind of takes care of a different part of the program here. So there's one here for sound effects. Now, let me show you the sound effects that I created here. I created a sound here called click and a sound effect called clack. And all I did here was I recorded my voice. I'm just going to go ahead and record a new one here. I'm going to go hit the record button and hit the red button. And when I do, I'm just going to go right into the microphone. I'm going to reach right off the screen here, so you're not going to see me, but you will hear me. All right, so I've got my sound here. I'm just going to isolate the last part of it, which is the actual sound. Actually, I think I'm going to delete. Where's my recording gone? I think I hit cancel for some reason. Let me try that one more time. All right, so there's my sound. I'm just going to delete. I'm going to grab the, actually, sorry, I'm going to draw a little loop around here and grab the parts. So this part in red here will all be erased when I click the save button. Let's preview it and see what it sounds like. There we go. There's my click sound. So let's save that. I'm going to boost the volume a little bit. So I'm going to go louder, louder, louder. There we go. And what I did here to make the clack sound was I duplicated this sound and then slowed down the sound here. So we're going to go slower a couple of times. And so now our sound's going to go click, clack. And we're going to have this go basically repeating for every one of these guys that's going to be making the click clack sound. The interesting part though is that because both these all these new guys are going to be a little bit off kilter with their timing, at first it's going to go click clack click clack, and then as more clones get added, it'll start going click clack click click until you get so many of them that it just becomes a click 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 sound, and it's very ominous and scary. So I'm not going to use these new recordings. I'm going to use my existing click and clack sound, which is this one here and this one here. And let's go ahead and code those sounds to work in here. So when I start as a clone, let's set the volume to 0. So we want it to start off very quiet. Then as they continue moving up the tunnel, they get louder, of course. So we'll go set volume under our sounds commands here. Set volume to 0. And let's grab a forever loop and pop it in there. So what are we going to do here? We're going to start shifting costumes. So let's go next costume. We're going to play our click sound. So let's go to our sounds, go start sound. We don't want them to pause in the middle of the sound, so we're going to do click, and then it'll proceed right to the next block, which is a wait block here. We're going to wait 0.2 seconds. And then I'm actually going to duplicate all 3 of these blocks, because as soon as we're done that, we want to do next costume, then a clack, and then wait again. So we're good to go with that part. And with each time around this loop, we want to change the volume by 1. So we're going to get louder and louder and louder. Let's go change volume by 1. And let's test this game out here, and you can hear the sound effects. Can't hear that because my volume's turned off. Let me just get my headphones on. Perfect. And you can see that it gets busier and busier sounding the more of these bad guys that are in there. Let's try that one more time here. And you'll notice that the click and the clack sound happen every time these guys move their little claws around. I actually really like the animation that I made here. It's much better than the one that the Scratch team put together. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that one. Okay. Things are coming along very smoothly here. So we've got one more little, or a couple of little blocks here. I also need a stop other scripts here with the game over. I'm going to do that. And then we're going to move on to the collision detection. So let's just do that little housekeeping here. When I receive game over, we're going to stop other scripts in this sprite. Same way we did with the other guy. Let's go stop all. Stop this script and stop other scripts in the sprite. This one has to go on the top because this one is an ending block that you can't attach stuff to. Okay, so where are we? So now into the collision detection. Let's do one more when I start as a clone. And we're going to do a forever. And we're going to say if touching our laser. Now we're not going to be able to test this yet because our laser's not actually done yet. Actually, let's do our laser first, and we'll come back to this collision detection later because there's no use detecting collisions for a laser that doesn't exist. Let's go over to our laser right now and start working on that. So as I said earlier, this is just a little red dot that I drew on the screen. You can pick whatever kind of laser you want. There's a bit of an issue. It's hidden right now. Let me show you what it looks like in Scratch when you draw these things. I tried drawing a small kind of laser bullet type thing, and I've noticed that there's a minimum size that you can shrink these things to. If I go to size here, let's go set our size to 100. So this is the size I actually drew it at. And if we go change size by 10 here, I'm actually going to attach that to a space key just so I can show you what happens here. So we're going to go change size by -10. We're going to tell it to shrink here. Let me max my screen out here. Start hitting the space key. So the first couple of times that I shrink it, it works fine. 3, 4, 5, 6. And you see, after the 5th time, it just refuses to shrink anymore. Scratch doesn't like objects that are just too small like that. And it's basically set a limit on that. So size of what, 48 is actually the minimum that it's letting me do with an object this size. I think depending on the size of the object you draw, it's gonna set a limit at a different place for you. But for now, that's where we're stuck at. So that's okay. But I did have to draw my object at the right size so that it would shrink. In my earlier version of this, no matter what I did, it didn't shrink at all, which was troubling me. And that was because I'd already drawn it too small. So I tried drawing my laser a little bigger and then started it shrinking, and that solved my problem. Okay, we don't need this code. I was just demoing stuff here. Let's go grab a green flag here, and we'll tell our laser beam to go to the middle of the screen. Why to the middle of the screen? Well, normally with projectiles, you want them to appear right on top of the thing that's shooting. The problem is, Scratch believes that our paddle is in the middle of the screen. When I say go to paddle, our thing's going to go right here, which is not where we want our bullet to be. We want it to be here. So we're going to use a little coding trick here to get our laser back to the middle, from the middle of the screen back out to the edge again and facing in the right direction. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. First, we're going to send it to the middle. So we'll go to 0, 0. Well, let's tell it to hide. Of course, this guy's going to be making clones. So let's say hide here. Then we'll grab a forever. And we want to shoot, in this case, with the mouse button. So I'm going to go mouse down. If you're not happy with that, you can also attach it to the space key or whatever you like. I just thought, since we're using the mouse to control things, that it would make sense to use the mouse clicker. So where's the mouse down button? It's under our sensing blocks. It's something that we're sensing. So let's go mouse down. If mouse down, we're going to create a clone of ourselves. We're going to play a sound effect. So I've already loaded the default laser shooting sound, which I like a lot, called Pew. And you can go ahead and use that one, or record your own sound, or grab one from a website, whatever you like. We'll go start sound Pew. Now we want a cool down time here so that we can't shoot too fast and create too many clones. So we're just going to put a timer in here. We're just going to say wait 0.25 seconds. So you're still going to be able to shoot quite quickly 4 times a second here, but I just want to make it so that you can't hold down the button and spam. I'll show you what that looks like in a second, actually, what it looks like when you spam. Generally speaking, though, that crashes your computer after a while, because Scratch does not like managing that many clones. Okay, when I start as a clone, we're going to set the size to 100. So let's go set size to 100. We'll tell our clones to be visible, of course. Okay, so here's where we're going to get a little bit of trickery, use a bit of trickery to get our dot from the middle of the screen here back out to the paddle. We cannot use a go to paddle command because, again, the computer thinks the paddle is, thinks the paddle is in the middle of the screen because that's where we set up its center, and it's actually way off to the edge. So how do we convince the thing to go towards the paddle? We can't go point towards paddle again because it's just going to point at the middle of the screen, and that won't help us at all. What we actually want to do is get our laser pointing in the same direction that the paddle is facing. So in this case, the paddle is facing in a direction of 50, or depending on where we spin it, let's put it in a direction of 90 here, just to make it make a bit more sense to you guys. So we're going to tell it to point in the same direction as the paddle. If our paddle is pointing at a 90, we're going to tell it to point at a direction of 90 degrees, and then we're going to move it out in this direction, and it will actually magically go over to our paddle. So let's do that right now. We'll go point in direction. Sorry, I'm on the wrong sprite here. We'll go back to our laser. We'll go point in direction. And so we want to know what direction the paddle is facing. We're going to use a reporter block, one of my favorite blocks in Scratch. It's this little block here under sensing that tells you all the information you need to know about other sprites. So the information about your sprite is all buried in these little blocks here, like your X position here, your Y position, your direction. But what if you want to know the X position of a different sprite, like the paddle, for example? Let's go over to paddle here from stage. And now you see that we have a menu here that gives us all the attributes, all the information that belongs to this paddle. And one of the attributes is direction. So now I have a little curved object here that says direction of paddle, and because this is curved, I can drop that in there. All right, so it's pointing in the direction of the paddle. Now we want it to move right to the edge of the paddle where our bullet's going to stop moving. Now we know our screen is 360 high, so the distance out to the top of this circle is probably going to be a little less than 180, including some wiggle room here off the edge of the paddle. So I just did a bit of trial and error here to figure that out. We're going to use a move command. Move always moves you in the direction you're facing. And you can see right now when I click the move, it starts moving in that direction. Let's bring it back to the middle again, though. And we'll tell it to move. Let's try 150 steps, for example, here. And that brings us close, but not quite. I'm going to go 160, and I'm pretty confident that will work nicely. So that's going to happen instantly. You're not actually going to see the bullet move from here to here because it just happens instantaneously. There has to be some kind of a pause or a loop for you to see movement inside Scratch. And we often use that trick to make things go ahead and check for stuff and then pop back again before you even notice that it's gone. So that's why we're able to move 160. Even though the thing is visible, we could move the show until after here, but in practice it doesn't really matter because this happens so quickly. All right, so we're going to do a bit of math here. We want our bullets moving at a speed of 10, and we're moving 160 steps. So we could put it in a forever and tell it when it gets to the middle, delete itself. But since we already know the distance, and the math works out quite nicely, we're just going to repeat 16 times here. And every time we're going to move 10 steps. So we can't move in the direction we're facing because we're facing in the wrong direction. Now we're facing outward. So to get it moving inwards again towards the center, we're just going to go move minus 10 steps. We also want it changing size here. So let's go change size under our looks commands here. Change size. And we'll just do -5. So it's going to shrink a little bit. And so we don't have to do an if statement here to make our bullets disappear or worry about them going through the center of this hole, because as soon as they're done, they're 16 times, they're going to be in the middle, and then we'll just delete this clone when it exits this loop after the 16th time. And so we're ready to test this out now. Let's hit the max button, click the green flag, and you can see that when we shoot, our bullets do, in fact, go towards the middle and get smaller as they're moving. Beautiful. We don't have anything happening here yet, though, as you can see, because we don't have our if statement set up. So now it's time to go back to our paddle sprite, and we can do the last if statement that we were talking about there. Actually, sorry, to the crab sprite. We're going to do that in the crab sprite. So when I started the clone, if touching laser, we need a little death animation for these guys. You can do whatever you want, but I am going to change their brightness a little bit. I'm going to make them glow a little bit and scream horribly before they die. So let's go ahead and do that. We're also going to change our score here and a couple of other little housekeeping items in here every time that we're touching the laser beam. So the first thing we're going to do is change the score here. Let's go to our variables. So when we kill a guy, we're going to change our score. I've already set up a score variable for you here. I'm going to change it by the score that we've assigned to these guys. Remember, their score is going to go down all the time as the game continues. So to reward you for shooting them quickly, we're going to make the score be this crab value, which is 100 at first and just steadily goes down the longer you leave these guys alive. All right. We've got some stuff happening in some other sprites when the aliens are killed. So we need to broadcast a message here so that everyone gets with the program here and knows that we've killed off an alien. So let's go with alien killed. All right. Now we're going to do a scream sound here. You remember that we were making the volume um, start at 0 and then move its way up, but we want this death sound to be quite loud. So we're going to circumvent that. We're going to supersede that other volume command. And we're going to set volume to 100 here, and that will make it nice and loud. And let's start that sound. Now, the death sound, I wanted it to sound kind of hollow and echoey. And so what I did is I went to my favorite voice recording website. It's called voicechanger.io. I've shown you guys this site a couple of times. It just has some fantastic little tools here for modifying your sound. You just click on the use microphone button. You might get a warning here that you want to enable your microphone. Of course, you should say yes. Let me try that again. So I'm going to go use microphone, and then it'll start recording right away. And I'm just going to scream into my microphone. I'm going to leave a couple of seconds at the end because I want an echoey kind of sound here. So I'll go use microphone. Oh, I think I talked over that clip. Let's try it one more time. So there I've got my sound. And now I can apply any sound effect I want to it, like this sound here, for example. Or this one here. And all kinds of fun sounds. Here's a robot sound. And you can pick whatever you like. This one here, these sounds don't have names, so I can't really tell you what it is, but I think it's a dark cave or something. So let me show you what this one sounds like. And that has the fun echoey sound I'm thinking of here. So we're just going to pick that, and then we're going to export it by going download. Now I don't need to export this because I've already done a couple. I did 3 different sound effects here, and I just named them all. Well, I did a whole bunch of them, but the screams I'm interested in here are Scream 4, 5, and 6. I've already tested these out. Let me show you what they look like, what they sound like, duh. Well, that's the first one. Here's the second one. I want a little bit of variety here in these scream sounds, so that's why I recorded 3. You can do as many as you want. So what we have to note here is the number of the sound effect. This is sound effect number 6, 7, and 8 that we want it to randomly go through. So how do you randomly pick a sound effect? Well, there's different ways to do it. You go roll a dice and say, you can say pick a random number from 1 to 3, and if I pick 1, play this sound. If I pick 2, play another sound, and if I pick 3, well, that's a whole lot of blocks to do something very simple. So let me show you a much more elegant way to do that. We're just going to tell it to start sound, and we're going to tell it to pick a random sound. We want it to pick 6, 7, or 8, so we're just going to put the number 6 to 8 here, and now every time one of these guys dies, they are going to play that sound. All right, let me just show you what that sound effect looked like. So let's go green flag. I keep saying look for these sounds. Now you notice we haven't deleted these guys yet. I want to check if the sound effect is working. Yeah, the sound effect is working properly. That's good. All right. So we haven't killed these guys off yet. We should probably do that right now. Let's go at the very bottom here. Underneath this, we'll go delete this clone. And now you'll see that our guys will actually be dying the way they're supposed to. There we go. Now, a couple of problems. You can see that my bullet goes right through and keeps going to the middle of the screen, which means I can kill multiple guys at once. You might want it to happen that way, but I don't. I want my bullet to actually disappear after it hits the first person. So to do that, we're going to have to broadcast a message and send it over to the other sprite, to the bullet sprite, to tell it to delete itself after it successfully kills someone. We're going to get to that in a minute. First, though, oh yeah, we did broadcast alien kills, so we've already done that, right? So the last thing I want to do is make these guys kind of glow a little bit when they've been killed. So we're going to put a repeat statement in here. Let's go repeat 10. We got to put it above delete this clone. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that here, so I'm going to pull this out and put it back in there. That's the proper construction. Everything inside the if statement. And let's go repeat 10 times. We're going to go to our looks and we'll go change brightness, which is under our change here, and we're just changing it in the opposite direction. We're making it brighter rather than less bright. We'll tell it to change by 10. And after it's done changing brightness, then it will delete the clones. Now our bullets still aren't disappearing. I'm going to get to that in a minute here, but let me show you what that looks like when these guys get killed. And you can see that they glow white and then they disappear. Beautiful. All right, things are coming along swimmingly here. Let's go over to the laser and tell the laser when I receive alien killed. So when I get that event message, we're just going to delete this clone, which is actually going to delete all the bullets on the screen, but you're probably not going to have more than one bullet on the screen at any given time. And you can see that. There we go. Everything's working nicely here. Or is it? No. Whoa, we got some stuff happening here. I put in a create clone of myself instead of delete this clone. That is a silly thing to do. So our clones were making clones. Let's try that one more time. Green flag. And you can see that our guys are now absorbing bullets. Instead of them going right through, they're actually grabbing it. Our game is looking pretty much done now. It's looking beautiful. So not much more to do here. And you can see that it's getting faster and faster and harder to play as time goes on here. Looking good. All right, so we are almost done. We're just going to add a couple of little features here, just the thumbnail and the game over, and then we're done. I've got to go get that game over back again. I'm going to do that right now. All right, so here's our game over screen. It's looking quite lovely. I made this font, this game over font here, using another website I like. There's a couple of websites that I just keep going to over and over and over again. This one's called fontmeme.com. I've shown this one to you guys in the past as well. I went to the text generator. You can see this generates all kinds of really cool fonts, a lot of them based on pop culture stuff like TV shows, movies, and video games. So if you want something that kind of matches something that you've seen on TV or whatever, this is a great place to do it. All you have to do is pick the font that you want. Let's try the Crybabies font here, for example, and then go down here, type your text into this window here. You can see I'm doing a game over. Pick a color, let's say red here, for example, generate. And there's our game over in the font that we want. It has other effects and stuff. I have a separate tutorial on how to use this if you're interested, but really handy little site. So I use that to create this game over text here, which I put together into a image editor program, added the crab, and put the background of the game on here so that it was happening against the backdrop of the game. And then Bob's your uncle. Okay, let's go grab a green flag and tell this guy what to do. So we've got this variable here. We're just gonna hide it at the beginning of the game. So let's go to our variables. We'll just say hide variable score. And we're gonna hide this game over graphic while we're at it. Let's go hide. And just like the other stuff, just in case we accidentally move it like this, we're gonna move it. We're just gonna keep moving it to the middle again. So let's go forever. Go to 0, 0. And that will make sure that it doesn't accidentally slide off the screen. All right, so this guy doesn't have to appear again until we receive that game over message. Let's go ahead and add that. When I receive game over, what's going to happen here? We're going to switch our costume. Oh, we don't have to switch a costume here anymore. This is an earlier version. So let's go show. Tell it to be visible. Now we don't want it to actually appear right away. So what we're going to do here is, this is bothering me a little. I'm just going to manually move it to the middle. All right. What we're going to do here is make it fade in. So we're going to set that ghost effect right away before we can even see this graphic. We're going to set the ghost effect. Even though it's visible, it's going to be invisible because its ghost is going to be 100, which is effectively invisible. I recorded my own sound. I did it again in voicechanger.io, and it is not here. I can upload it though. So let's go upload it. I've got it saved into a queue here. Here it is. No! And let me show you what that sounds like. I use that same echoey well effect here. Very cool. When you're recording these sounds, make sure on voicechanger.io, make sure to wait a couple of seconds before you hit that stop record button because you don't want it to be cut off. If your sound does end up being cut off and the echo it goes echo, echo, and then stops, one way you can fix that is by grabbing the end of your file and then doing fade out, and that will just naturally fade out that sound. I'm going to undo because it's already faded out, but that's how you would use that. Let's play that sound effect here. Let's go, we're back in the game over screen here. So we're going to go start sound so that it doesn't delay anything else. And now we're going to have our thing fade in. Let's go control. We'll repeat 20 times. You can change these numbers depending on how quickly or how slowly you want stuff to fade. And so because we want to go from 0 all the way to up, from 100 all the way down, sorry, our ghost effect is, yeah, it's at 100. We want it to go all the way down to 0. So we're going to make it go down by, from 100 to 0 divided by 20 means we have to change it by 5 times. So let's go change ghost effect by -5. And if we do that 20 times, we'll end up down at 0, which will be completely visible. The little deceptive here is 0 means visible and 100 means invisible, because we're not measuring its visibility, we're measuring its invisibility, its ghost attribute. Okay, now we've already stopped the game because we've done these stop alls that are stop our paddles and our crabs from moving. So we have a couple of seconds to play with. We're not going to be scoring any points or whatever. So I just want to leave a second here for this game over to be visible. And then we're going to go back to our splash screen again, which I'm going to implement in just a second here. So let's go to our control blocks. We'll just wait 3 seconds for you to register the game over event here. And then we're going to stop all sounds. That will stop the background music playing because it's been playing constantly throughout this whole thing. We're going to add that background music in a second. But let's go stop all sounds. And then we're actually going to, let me just duplicate this repeat. We're going to have our thing fade away again after this. So rather than just disappearing, it's going to change by 5 until it's totally visible again. Or totally invisible again. And once we're done with that, we'll hide it so it's ready to go for the next time we play the game. And we're done all our funny stuff, so we're going to go stop all. Well, how do we get that splash screen to be visible again? The idea is that our splash screen is always going to be visible as long as we're not playing the game, because it's going to be in the front layer and it's going to be ghosted. And as you guys might know, if you have something that has a ghost effect and then you stop the program, that ghost effect clears out. So I can show you with this. Actually, let's go over to the thumbnail sprite here and let me just demo that for you. So we're going to make this visible. It's still behind the game over sprite, so let's move it to the front by using a go to front layer command. There's our splash screen. Now you might want to design your own because this one has my fancy Chromeworks thing on here. If you make your own version, you just want to blot this out and add your own credits onto here, basically. So let me show you. I'm going to make this thing a ghostly effect. Let's go set ghost effect to 50. We're not actually going to use this for the program. I just want to demo this for you. So if we make this transparent, you can see the game over underneath it. But as soon as we start our program, bang, it becomes visible again because that ghost effect only works while our program is running. We're going to take advantage of that so that our splash screen is always visible on the screen when we're not playing the game. Basically, as soon as we hit that stop button, we're going to see that terror tunnel. And also, when you start playing the game, you're going to see the thumbnail. So even when you pick it in Scratch Editor, you're going to see this terror tunnel, and it'll have a really nice little graphic look to it. I'm seeing these thumbnails more and more in Scratch projects, and if you want your project to look pro MLG, you're going to want to start using these splash screens in your own videos as well, or sorry, in your own projects as well. Okay, let's start coding this. I'll show you how this works. We'll go when green flag clicked. Again, we're going to hide that variable. I might be hiding it once too many times here, but Can't do these things, can't be too careful about these things. Want our games to look pro. All right, we're going to tell our thing to go to the middle just in case we accidentally slide it around. We're going to set the ghost effect to 0 when I start because we want this thing visible at the beginning. So set ghost effect to 0. At the beginning of the game, we want this to be visible. And then after we play the game, or actually, so when we click the green flag, I'm going to have it just wait 1 second. And then we'll have it fade out. So let's do a repeat 20 times. We're going to change that ghost effect by 5. Let's go to our looks, change ghost by 5. And that will make it fade out. We want that same thing to happen when we click on it, right? So when you're playing the game, even if you click on it without clicking the green flag, we want this terror tunnel to disappear and our game to be visible. So we're gonna just do a second thing here where we go when this sprite clicked. We're gonna grab this duplicate or this repeat, and we're gonna duplicate it, and we're gonna have it fade out like that too. So now when I click on it, it's gonna fade away, and when I click on the green flag, it's gonna fade away as well. So 2 ways to get rid of this, and then as soon as we stop our game, it will appear again. Beautiful. Okay, so now there's a couple of other things we have to do here. After we're done fading out, let's make that variable visible again. So we'll go to our variables, we'll go show variable score. And our score's up at the top here. I'm not sure if I've talked about this recently, but you know that you can get this score here that doesn't have the word score in it by right-clicking and going normal readout. There we go. And then you can go large readout to remove that. So if I want to see the word score here, I can do that. But in this case, there's only 1 readout, so all we need is for it to say large readout. I'll show you the slider function some other day. That actually gives you a function that lets you modify this variable by sliding it around. Not really useful for keeping score, though. All right. So while we're done this, we're getting our game set up. So we're just going to put a forever here, and we're going to start playing our background music. I picked the Scratch defaults movie sound, which is kind of an action movie soundtrack. Listen to that. I just really like that sound effect, so we're going to use that one. And I think we're getting close to done here. Let's put a green flag in here. I don't think I've put a green flag in here yet. Oh, there is a green flag. Oh, so yeah, so we're going to set our score to 0. I did it over in the other sprite, but let's put it here just to mix things up and confuse people. So we're going to set our score to 0 at the beginning of the game. Remember, you always have to reset your score when you start a game. And so the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to set up a loop that's constantly bringing this splash screen to the front, because as soon as we start clicking stuff on our screen, it's going to move to the back, and we want it always to be in the front. Even if it's though it's invisible, we want, as soon as we stop, for it to be visible, and we don't want game over or anything else crowding it out and making this not appear anymore. So we're going to go forever, and we're going to go to our looks commands and go to front layer. There we go. Let's save our work here. All right, I think we are ready to test out this game. It's basically done now, so let's go ahead. There we go, terror tunnel. And you can see that we can click the green flag and have a look at our screen here, and then we're ready to go. That will reappear, wait a second, and then disappear again. And now our bad guys are appearing. I can start killing them. And let's see how long I can stay alive here. You can see that it will get more and more difficult as time goes on. It's not a noticeable difference, but at some point you'll see that they actually will start to come a lot faster and the game will get much more difficult. You know what? I'm still missing the game over event. I forgot to add that. So you'll see that when this guy touches me, I don't think anything's going to happen because I haven't told it to yet. So there's one little bit of code I haven't added yet. That is over in cool. That is over in our crabs again. So I had a, let's go back to that again. So we're going to go over to our crabs, and we've got the if statement here for touching laser. We're going to add one more if statement below this one, and that's the one that's going to kill us. So let's go to our if statements. We'll drop that in inside the forever, but below the other if statement, and we're going to say if touching paddle. So if the bad guys actually touch us, then we're going to broadcast a game over. It was that simple. I just forgot that last step. Game over. All right, let's try this one more time. Click the green flag. Here's our bad guys. And you'll see that they do start to come in faster and faster as the game progresses, till it gets quite difficult. Now, one thing you'll notice is if you try to spam the shoot button, you're not going to get very far. Well, as soon as you kill one of these guys, whoa, it's starting to get a little harder here. As soon as you kill one of these guys, you can, all your bullets on the screen are going to disappear. So if you're shooting a bunch of guys, you'll find that your bullets will disappear. And this looks like it's the end of me very soon here. It's getting a little freaky here. And there we go, game over. And beautiful. So there's our game over event, and then our terror tunnel appears on the screen here. Looks like a few little stacking problems, but not something I'm terribly worried about. It all still looks really, really good. Okie dokie, I am going to call that one a wrap. So this was a bit of an unexpected game. I wasn't really planning to make it today. As I said, my other plan fell through. So, but I'm really happy I did. This is a game that I put together in the course of a couple of hours, and it's actually really fun. And almost as soon as I put it up on the Scratch website, I started getting likes on it. So it seems like the Scratch community is loving it as well. Please like and share the game, and like and share this video as well. Our viewership is still sadly low. I'm seeing other people putting Scratch tutorial videos out, getting 50,000, 100,000 views, and I rarely get more than 100 or so. So if you really believe that what I'm doing here is worthwhile, please share it with your friends, subscribe to me, and pass the love on so that more people can watch these tutorials. I think I'm working hard here and doing some good work. So if you're looking to reward me for that, please drop me those likes. I am doing this completely for free. I'm not monetized and not making any money off of this particular project. So you can pay me just by giving me your attention, guys. I would love to have more people watching these videos. Until then, thanks a lot, guys. I will see you next week.